Hi, and welcome to Hanger V Hobby Hangout, the very opinionated podcast by hobbyists, now with 10% more microplastics. I am one of your hosts, Springer.
I'm your other host, Lupes. I think I've got a little less than 10%. That'd be a scary volume of microplastics to have inside
Actually,
you.
yeah, no, honestly, I do. I hope I have less than 10%, but it was supposed to be a joke. But anyway, today we have with us two guests. We have Indy,
Hey, sitting here at 50% microplastics.
all right, and Magic.
What's good? I don't have a microplastics percentage, sorry.
Okay.
No, but you're
Thank
100% awesome.
It's true.
Absolutely.
And 110% homosexual.
So today, uh, I wanted to kind of talk about a uh, not unique problem, but I think something very common amongst those of us in plastic modeling hobby, especially other people who are in maybe like some sort of collector hobby or miniatures, and it's kind of this. I'm roughly summing it up as the fear of missing out, or better known as, "Oh my god, why is my backlog this big?" Uh, and it's like, I mean, I think I'm not alone in this. Like, it's something
Oh,
that, like,
no.
yeah, like, when you start measuring how much you have in spreadsheets, I feel like that's a sign, right?
Yes, there's a certain right. You and I both have a spreadsheet full of what we've got going on and what's sitting back there. And like, I for me, the first time I actually counted through my backlog, I was like, "Oh God, when did this happen? How did this get like this?" It literally caught me off guard. Like, you'd think part of it is doing the hobby for a long time, right? But then you actually take a closer look at everything and you're like, that's all recent. what
Yeah, I just
what
did this just
happened?
now.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's I was in the same boat where it's like when you start measuring how many like years it would take if you did like n model kits a month.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, maybe
Oh.
maybe it's time to start, dialing it back like 10 kits ago.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. It's
Like
funny you bring up
wondering.
what is it? What did you say? The time it would take to do that? I think I had that on the hangerv.com blog post talking about my backlog. I think it was like till 2030 if I finished one kit a month every month.
Holy
And it
crap.
was like that's a really long time. My uh-oh,
And
that's 6 years.
I'm assuming that's only accounting for just like snap building, not like full on
No, that
customs.
was I mean, kind of. I mean, everything that I bought, I had a custom plan in mind for. So like, it's ultra unrealistic. You got kids and jobs and stuff like that, other obligations.
Yeah.
I think that's a good like starting point because like for me it's like I tried to like only get things that I could look at it and be like, "Oh, I have a project in mind for that." But the problem is that happens so much and like you have to find a line in the sand, right? Like you could have a project for everything, and then
Right?
you end up in the world where you have an entire, you know, room in your basement dedicated to the to your own personal archives.
Yeah.
Mm. Hmm.
Mm.
There's definitely
Yeah. I don't really like have a giant backlog anymore, as a result of some life events. But I am also not like desperately missing purchasing things, if that makes sense.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it does.
I mean, there's stuff that I think is really cool. That Sword Calamity that was just announced and
Yeah.
released through P Bondi was really cool, and it's like, man, I'd really like that. But also, that's a chunk of money that I can't really justify spending at the moment. And the other side of it is, when am I going to build it? You know?
That's
yeah.
too logical for this discussion.
Yeah, we
Um,
can't have that. Sorry, Andy.
no, but like that's actually I think that kind of ties into one thing I wanted to touch on as well, which is like it's one thing to be like, I'm missing out on this, and then it's the others to like kind of be more grounded. Like you put yourself in more of a reality of like, hey, that's cool, but like I don't have, you know, I don't have money set aside for this, right? Like I don't have the ability to just do a drop in the bucket for a thing that, I might not build for a
Hmm.
while, if at all. Whereas like with, Gunpla or any Plamo, like and I know for a fact it is with any Plamo, given, people who have their miniature uh what is it? People playing golf, basically, where they're like, I have a score I have to hit, which is like build or paint through my miniature backlog. Or I've been to local meetups where guys will bring like decades worth of like armor and planes and stuff that they're like, hey, I wanted to build all these cars, but I realized I only liked it for like the first couple times.
Oh.
Yeah. And like, so like the idea of like, it's one thing to, like you're like, okay, I'm missing out, but like you've acknowledged that there's something a little bit more stronger than like not having the plastic and more important to you.
Mhm.
And like I think that's something that like I've tried to come to grips with and like fight, because it's like it's so easy to be like, oh, and then I just add to cart, add to
Yeah.
cart. Yeah.
Easy click.
Yeah.
It's like 3
Serotonin.
clicks. Done. Oh boy, I have a thing coming in 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then you forget until you get the
Oh,
email. It's like, wait, I bought
Oh,
that.
yeah. Like, FOMO is
Yeah.
a lot easier to
So,
avoid for retail stuff because unless it's something really weird, you don't really have to worry too much about it not being available. You're always going to be able to get your hands on the new Verka or the Sazabi Verka and
Mhm.
some of those big other common guys. Like, yeah, even if you've got the idea that's like burning a proverbial hole in your pocket, whatever, however you want to put it.
Your brain pocket.
Yeah, your brain pocket. That shit's getting cooked. But
Yeah.
you know that when you don't have the time to do it, you can still just get it when you're ready and you do have the time. But P Bandai, it's a lot harder to cope with that because you never, I'm still waiting for a bunch of Zaku's to show back up on P Bandai for that, and it's just kind of the game you play with that. But I think ultimately patience wins out with a lot of stuff
Yeah.
through P
Oh yeah.
Bandai.
I was really, really excited for the Gundam Wound Ward when that high grade first dropped because it's like one of my favorite Gundam designs. But when it first dropped, I couldn't get in fast enough or something, and I didn't like get the kit on the very first drop, and I was heartbroken. And then lo and behold, they reprinted it, and then they reprinted it again, and then they reprinted it
Yep.
again, and then they reprinted it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so like you said, patience wins
I,
out.
I mean, I would agree with that, except I have a very
Ooh,
specific
yes.
example where it
Oh no.
has not worked in my favor, and that was pre USP Bondi, back when it was, a
Mhm.
Japanese exclusive thing. And it was during the Build Fighters era. And the two kits specifically are the Gundam M91 and the Tall Strike Glitter. Neither of them have been
Yeah.
reprinted
They are
at
currently
all. There have
reprinting
been,
some P Bandai things from
But not those
right.
yet.
They
not
did
not yet.
yeah, they did the Battlelog. They did the Battlelog P Bondis. So that was like the Psycho GM.
The Amazing
Uh,
Zagak.
what else was in that list? The Amazing Zagok and a couple of others. I think it was the what was the
Um,
Renacida?
The
Fenice,
Liburg.
Fenice Renacida, and the
The f-
the blue one.
it's like it was the
He's got like a
Battlelog
motorcycle
specific
instead
one,
of
but
a
yeah, that
plane
one
or
also
something,
got
right?
yeah, something like that. It wasn't the Alba; it was the one that
Yeah.
came after, I think. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, like there. I mean, it's very specific scenarios that haven't been reprinted yet. Like I said, I mean, I missed out on the Shoku because that was, I think, one of the last exclusives that dropped before USP Bandai came out, and I waited. I waited probably about 3 years, and finally the Shoku came out. Snagged it.
Mm.
What the heck?
Yeah. Same.
I
Oh,
heard a
sorry,
ding.
that was Ro.
Oh, okay. I thought my time was up. Uh, No, but I waited. I snagged the Shoku, and I was like, "All right, this is really cool." And then I sold it. I never built it. And then they re-released it 2 more times. And I was like, "Okay, I didn't go pedantic over
No,
this."
and
See, it's also like hard to tell because I, similar vein, I loved the Wound Ward and I love the Hazel, like the Hazel 2. They all have different names and it's the same name and it's a different suit. Anyways, I
Yeah.
love AOZ. I have a lot of words. But when they released the Master Grade, I was like, that freaking whips. I love that. But also it was like $70 raw. I was like, ugh, I don't like it that much. Then I like it percolated in my brain. I'm like, damn it, I'm in love with it. And luckily, one of my weaker willed and dare I say stupider friends did buy it when he didn't really have the funds for it. And he's like, oh no, I have this kit coming in that I can't pay for. And I was like, why don't I just pay you for it and take it off your hands? And so I did. And the moral of the story is that I always get what I want. So that's that. But like that's another thing where like I could have sworn that like the master grade Hazel would be reprinted like hand over fist because it's like mostly just the Mark II with like a few extra runners and like it looks fantastic. But I think they've only reprinted it maybe once since then.
yeah, like I think that's the thing with like certain designs are going to be more evergreen, especially in the context of something like P Bandai.
Hmm.
And like the evergreen things are gonna like they will see a reprint, maybe. In a similar vein to indie, I went out of my way to find the MG Power GM because it was also a pre-US P Bandai release. I found a seller in Hong Kong who was selling it actually like reasonable, and like I was like this close to spending like way too much of it, or
Hmm.
way too much for it, and it actually I think actually just recently got reprinted, and it's just
So
one of those things that's like I could have, but like you don't know,
yeah,
right?
there's no way of knowing.
And I think that like kind of it's almost like it's a like self-feeding cycle, right? Because like a lot of the times with the popular releases, be it Gunpla or some other collectible, that like anything that really ties into the drop culture that has
Hmm.
like Stanley mugs, if
Yeah.
that's what you're into.
Yep,
uh
like that's
eh,
literally what Rowan and I were talking about before dinner is these freaking Stanley mugs.
Fist fight in the Target parking lot.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so from what I understand, there's a bit of a controversy with those. I guess the recent testing has found
Yep.
trace amounts of lead in them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that
right?
and that's something I need to read into more. But yeah, and it's but
Anyway,
like
your
but
original point was
no, that's the whole idea of like this is kind of like a self-feeding cycle with these. For example, we had P Bandai where like they started implementing anti-scalper measures, and like
Hmm.
and like what was happening, we were all dealing with like, oh hey, this is really cool, and it turned into like we now have like a schedule like, hey, it's dropping, everyone get ready, have
yep,
your login ready.
7:55. Go get at your computer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like you get into like this like this almost like this dopamine hit of like, oh man, I
Yeah.
can't wait to get this thing. and and then in the cases of when it was really hard to get stuff, like that's when it really hit. Like it hit good, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's like not so much the scarcity anymore. Like I don't recall a time when I've seen people go, oh damn, everything's been sold out within like 5 seconds. It's just been like, yep, I got my thing, I got my thing, I got my thing. It's like, so either they increased the numbers, or like it's just like we've already fed into the hype.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's like, it's not just hype. Let me clarify, it's not just the hype, right? It's cool stuff, right? It's things that we enjoy, hopefully.
Mhm.
and and now to the
And
point
it's
where it's
exciting
like,
to like, oh, I'm getting to build stuff with my bros. We all bought the same kit off of P Bandai. We're all going to get it at the same time. Have a big
And
old group build.
right,
yeah,
and it
like it's
like,
a community thing, you know? Like
yeah,
that's
Right.
that's part of the hype.
right. So, and like that feeds into the whole like, it was originally us like, you got to outpace the scalpers, and now it's just like you get into this like this habit of like, P Bandai drop, gotta get my drop.
It's a fun
Gotcha.
thing you do with friends versus like a competition, you know? It becomes more collaborative almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as stressful. I mean, like comparatively, there I have had experience with a Supreme
Ooh.
drop one time in my life, and it was specifically a Gunpla related
Oh.
Supreme drop. It was the RX-78
Was it
3.0 MG that they collabed with Supreme for.
the red
The
Mhm.
one?
thing's heinous, it's ugly. The only reason I wanted it was to eventually
That's
Very
resell it. I'll
smart,
be completely
honestly.
honest.
Those Supreme people are
Um,
nuts.
yeah, oh yeah, they're insane. But regardless, like I remember I was there. I was at my computer. It was 5 minutes before the drop. I was signed into their site. I had everything ready to go. I was on the page, ready to go. As soon as I hit live, I hit purchase. Gone. Just
That's
immediately gone.
wild.
Like I think 5 seconds is how long it took for that thing to sell out. And from what I understand, Supreme has no countermeasures for bots. Whereas like Premium Bondi, they have their anti-scalping measures. The process is really long and involved. It requires
Mhm.
human interaction. Uh, you know, um, so I think there's something to be said for that. I think the other issue with premium Bondi when it was earlier, and when you're talking about how it was like a mad rush to get what you want, I
Yeah.
think a lot of it was growing pains. Um, at that point in time, like USP Bondi was pretty fresh, and I don't know a heck of a lot on Bondi's perspective of the United States and their sales over here, but from what I do hear frequently, is they've massively underestimate the Western
Mhm.
market sometimes. And I think that's part of what was going on. Is I think they were like, oh, it's a niche hobby, and which it is, but not that many people are going to be into it. And then lo and behold, people are like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I need to snap
You can
that up.
actually,
Mm.
because Bandai is a publicly traded company, you can find all of their investor reports online. And they do talk about
Hmm.
a couple years back of their expansion into the overseas markets, overseas for them being China and the US. And we see how that's played out um, quite well, I would think.
Mhm. I hope so.
Yeah.
Um,
Seems like it.
No, I mean, yeah, it's also very interesting to see just from a cultural perspective the difference because like limited run things in Japan are crazy. Like everything has a limited run collaboration, or it's like this is a seasonal treat, or things like that. And then we have a little bit of that over here, but it's not nearly as socially
yeah,
pervasive
yeah.
as
I
it
mean,
is
if
over
I
there.
recall, my brief experience of from being in Japan, like I like bought something at a convenience store, and they're like, "Here's your here's your like entry into like this lottery for like this thing, and like if you come back with like this many tickets, you can enter into another lottery for like a thing." Like not that you like, hey, it's like you get your reward for like you made so many purchases, you get the thing. It's you get your chance to get the thing, and it's like it's everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I mean in Gunpla over there as well. Like, isn't there like the Ichiban Kuji
Yeah,
stuff?
So you
it's
enter a lottery to have the chance to purchase it, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lottery for a chance to purchase this
Mhm.
very specific thing, and
Yeah,
it's
but yeah,
nuts.
it's more
Like,
culturally like entwined there. It's like that's kind of like scarcity is. I mean, it is in a lot of senses. It's always artificial scarcity, right? Because like they could always make more, but they can make more money making less, and that happened. And we've seen that not just in Japan, but like with the Stanley mugs, sneaker culture, which had its
Ooh.
own overlap with Gunpla,
Oh,
uh,
right.
with
Jeez.
the
mhm.
unicorn drop, which
Yeah.
if anyone
Oh
remembers that,
yeah.
Yep.
if you remember that one, that tanked P Bandai as well, because it was the Nike themed unicorns, and we got the overlap of the sneakerheads going after it as well, and it immediately popping up on like I don't remember the name of the websites where you buy uh hype, where the hell it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what
I'm
you're
not.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, I'm passingly aware of it just because, like, one of the things on my Facebook feed is a dude named John
Oh,
Manalo
sweet.
that restores Nikes.
That's kind of cool. Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch. But yeah, it's nuts. And then like, cause like just for reference, like he's like, oh yeah, I found these beat up Nikes at a thrift shop, and it's like, oh yeah, on this website they're going for like $1,300. So he just fixes them, and then like they're indiscernible from the originals, so just boom, resell it. It's nuts, and like most sneakerheads don't care. Some are gonna want obviously like that certificate of authenticity and for it to be factory and all that stuff, but like for the most part, people
Yeah,
don't care.
I mean, if I've learned anything, it's that the FOMO is pervasive through mostly the collector hobbies, right? Uh,
Mhm. Or
you,
Hmm.
consumerist hobby. Like, I have actually a lot of words about how consumerist hobby, specifically fear of missing out, sort of unfairly targets neurodivergent people of like they have this fixation on this thing and like their entire day like depends on like I have to make sure that I get this thing or else no one will love me anymore or I won't get that serotonin hit. And like it's kind of depressing to see. And like when people say that about like, oh, my backlog is so huge, I'm like, this isn't a replacement for like mental health. Please seeks therapy at a certain point. Like, and obviously, I'm just some guy on the internet, so like, what do I have to say about it? But I think it's like some a mental health discussion that we should also be having, and how it sort of interacts with consumerism.
no, actually, that is a very valid point. It's like we're replacing it. I mean, it is literally what people refer to as retail therapy, where it's like I
Yeah.
am deriving my joy, my serotonin, by purchasing things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like in the similar way. It's identical, I would think, in the nature to things like uh, microtransactions and gotcha drops,
Yes.
where it's like
Absolutely.
you gotta crack your PNGs to get your new waifu or whatever. Or I mean, yeah,
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is kind of like a remnant of the keeping up with the
Yeah.
Joneses culture of the '90s. Like it's very much like, I mean, obviously, there's always been people that want to get like the new hotness, like this really cool new thing. But like, I feel like, I touched on this in the Discord the other day, and it's the complete disregard for anything from the '90s because of the economic excess at the time.
Yeah.
It, for those of you that didn't live through the '90s, it was an absolutely wild time. Absolutely wild time. Companies were throwing new products at you like every couple of days. New toys were coming out.
toys were
It was
wild, man.
nuts. Just rampant consumerism. Yeah, and like while we have, remnants of that still to this day, but it's not nearly as bad as it was back then. But the repercussions can be felt everywhere. I mean, look at the new iPhones, look at the new Samsung Galaxies that are coming out. These, we're talking about minuscule changes to
It's got
things,
an
but you need to
entirely new
have it.
SKU
You know what I
number,
mean?
so
Because it's
like, get it, you filthy
yeah,
consumer.
exactly. Well, and that's the thing is that it's just like the social impact of consumerism, where we are kind of conditioned to chase that high because it's like, oh, I can show off. Now it's a talking point. Now I can be like, oh yeah, I just got the
Mhm.
new iPhone. Cool. I don't really care for that, but you know what I mean. It gets you talking. Gets that conversation. It's kind of like a talking on that like mental health point. It's almost like a replacement for
Yes,
socialization to an
that's
It's
what it
extent.
is. Yeah.
is it like the
Um,
people who like replace their personality with like I have a insert, you know,
Hmm.
shiny high end vehicle here, or
Yes, I drive a Tesla. Like, uh huh.
I think I think there's some like similarities there. But that's not to say that everybody with a
no.
Oh
backlog
yeah,
has a
yeah.
mental health issue. Blah blah blah. Some people just collect, and that's fine. Collection is fine. And there's not really an issue with collecting things. The only issue, like from personal experience, my issue with collecting didn't really start until you know I met my wife, and she moved in with my daughter, and we had our youngest, and it started out as like, okay, space is now at a premium,
Mm.
so it's like I can't really add more to this. I still tried to keep up with the hobby, and then just didn't. happened. My wife's pregnancy became very difficult. So she ended up being taken out of work. So I became the sole income provider, and then that added another layer of complexity. It's like, okay, now I need to justify these purchases. How can I justify spending $50 or more on a couple of chunks of plastic that are going to sit in a cardboard box until I can maybe get the time to look at it, and then having, our daughter, she babies need a lot of work. They need a lot of care. Your your attention is in demand pretty much 24/7. There's no like, okay, I'm going to go snap something up. And for a while, eventually they start to become a little bit more independent if you're lucky. Um, but it just became that gradual like stepping away from it, and that really, like, obviously I'm not going to say, oh, have a child that's going to fix your FOMO. That really, what I'm trying to get at is find your perspective on it. Like that put things into perspective for me, where like it's like, okay, time perspective, financial perspective are the two huge factors. And it's like, and the other part is I can't paint right now. I don't have the space, and I'm not going to use lacquers in the house. That's just stupid. Um, but it's just a matter of finding that perspective. If you're concerned about the amount you're spending, about the amount of space that's being taken up, about the amount of kits you have, really finding that perspective for yourself to just like, okay, this is a really cool kit. Do I want it because it's the hot new thing? Or do I actually have a plan for it? Do I actually want this because I'm going to enjoy it? Really that's how I kind of cope with it. And the other part is like, what does that $50 get me and my family compared to what does it get for me specifically?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a really good take. Like, you gotta critically look at these things like, oh wow, this is beautiful. Do I want it because it's beautiful and new and fresh, or do I want it because I particularly relate to the Cubile or something? Like when I got the Imbayir and the though when those big Cubiles dropped, I was like, oh, I don't need it that badly, and then I did, and then I purchased it anyways.
I mean, I think that's a good. There's a couple. I mean, there's a lot of good points there. Don't get me wrong. The one I want to touch on is like it's cool, but like, did I derive more joy from getting it, or am I going to get more joy from building it
Ooh.
and like getting to flex my builder muscles and stuff with it, or is it literally like it's a pretty box, I have it now, it's on my shelf, I don't like it as much anymore, and I like have this like slight regretsy. uh like that's one
Mm.
thing. uh
Well,
yeah.
can I bring up one thing
No, go
before
ahead.
we move to another point? Just because, like, I gave my perspective on it as being, a father to a young child in the hobby, and but I know Loops is as well, and I'd really like to hear his perspective on his take on the things that I stated. I don't know if like his experiences are exactly similar to mine, or if he has a different experience, because I know he's been able to engage in the hobby a little bit more than I can. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to hear
but
this actually.
Yeah, the first like 6 or 7 months, you don't really get a whole lot of time. But then when you start, once we, those first couple months, I really didn't build a whole lot of anything because, like you said, you're very much in demand, almost constantly. And our child was premature, so there was a lot of extra work to do on top of that. But once we reached a point where they were, oh, sorry, she's just making noise now in the other room. I'll have to lie down a little bit. Um, Once we reached a point where she was sleeping through the night on their own, and they were taking their naps consistently and stuff like that, I would find that I would have, an hour or two here or there to, maybe just snap a kit together or even work on the block a little bit. And then that eventually transitioned really cleanly into them sleeping through the night on their own. So now, it's been really nice the last, I think, probably 4 or 5 months where they go to bed around like 7:15, and I can kind of go do whatever for the rest of the night. I got a really nice spray booth in the basement at the new house that we bought, is very large and very open. So there's lots of room to set up space to work on everything down there. A new spray booth is super quiet, and I can kind of just keep chugging right along on it now. Like my time is, I still don't have as much time as I used to, where you would go to work, come home, and then just work on a model kit for like 6 hours because you're living in an apartment. You don't have anything to do. Now there's lawns to mow, and the dishes or laundry yet again that need to be taken care of. But it's been a slow um build up back to being able to engage with the hobby in like kind of a more hardcore way. Like I've been working on a master grades hobby for the last 2 or 3 months, something like that. I think I've brought it to like 3 or 4 build days at the local hobby shop,
Mm.
and I just started painting it tonight, and I got all the like metal parts in and junk like that for it. And yeah, it's been nice to be able to be unwind or it's been nice to be able to unwind with the hobby again as my child's become a little more independent and a little more predictable in their schedule and needs.
Would you
Mm.
say that like having that set post bedtime hours or whatever, does that help you sort of focus your schedule on like kits or something?
Absolutely, because it's like, you kind of plan it out through the day. Like when they go down for that first nap, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go downstairs and put all the parts up on skewers and get the paint mixed and stuff like that. So it really kind of makes you refine your workflow, and so you can kind of maximize the time that you get to work on stuff.
That's kind of fun. I love that.
It's made for a really efficient process when I can maintain motivation, or some days are just more challenging than others with kids, and
Mhm.
that's okay. But yeah, when I'm on it, it's like, wow, this new workflow and new space really works out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. There is definitely part of me that's like, oh man, my kid's gonna they're gonna love these things when they see them. They like the perfect grades because they light up.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah, they
adorable.
think that's really cool.
Ah, that's so cute.
Yeah, it's really adorable. Yeah, I could go on for a long time about them because I let them interact with what I'm up to like in a safe way. But
Mhm.
that would be an entire episode on its own, or like a B-side conversation where it's like, oh, you can just talk about their kid for 40 minutes. Wow.
That would be a really cute episode. Let's put that in show pitches.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. No, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's definitely like it's a perspective I don't have because I don't have a child. I have
Oh,
a
but I'm sorry, but to also get to some of Indy's other points, yeah, it does make you reevaluate. Like, do I really want to purchase this now? It becomes a matter of like, am I going to work on this kit this year? What about, do I have the time or energy to work on all this stuff? You start asking yourself a lot more questions, and you find it a lot easier to go, I don't even need to like look at this week's B band I dropped because I just don't it's not a high priority in your mind. Like, I gotta go to the store and buy 2 gallons of milk now because my kid is jamming that down every night. And eggs are like what, $6 now. So they're plowing through that, and it's like I need to have money available for my child or my spouses or any of my 3 pets. Anything they
Yeah.
might need. I can't feed anyone or clean anything up with a master grade uh whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can't feed my family with another perfect grade unicorn.
yeah,
Sorry, you're gonna have to beep that one, but I think that's a good one to beep.
Yeah,
yeah, no,
sounds
it's
good.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Is like, I can't feed my family with you know full mechanics
Yeah.
sword calamity.
Yep.
You know, like I
Like
can't bring that to Walmart and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna scan this the self checkout and I'm gonna get all my stuff for free
right.
because you think it's awesome.
Like
Like it
I
doesn't work that way.
we have
You know what I mean?
conversations where it's like, hey, I really want to get this one, or like I try to like set back like maybe 10, $15 from each pay period just to like keep around as a model building slush fund, where
Mhm.
it's like, oh, this is money that's like, it's different from a savings account and stuff like that. It's my silly little me time money.
Yeah, and like that's finding that balance again is one of those like things you have
Yes.
to look critically at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely like. I'm glad to have y'all's perspective on this because, like I said, I don't have a child. I have a, well,
You have George.
I have a dog.
Ooh,
It's a large
who's George?
animal who, he has an earlier bedtime. Actually, his bedtime is about the same as your child's. Um, but like
Those old dogs, man.
it's in the uh, it's just like, yeah, the whole perspective of like you go from, oh, I gotta have the cool thing, or like I like this thing, I have the idea for it, to now it's like I really have to like think about the decisions I'm making. Like, if I buy this, is it food? Is it, or is it just taking up space? And space is at a premium when it's not just you anymore, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'm fortunate to have a very large open floor plan basement, but like my backlog, like yeah, it's big, but it's still only two 5-tier shelves from Home Depot.
Oh, that does make me feel a little better.
That fits very cleanly in the far corner of my basement.
I think that's one thing I've also discovered is like doing the whole like spreadsheet project for like identify, like, that was the spreadsheet project was kind of like my stopping point of like I have to not keep building up the backlog, but rather
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
build
don't want to
build.
add to the spreadsheet. That sucks. Are you
Yeah,
kidding
like you
me?
have there's a shame to it, not like a shame, but like and sometimes it very very rarely works in my favor, but like sometimes works in the backlog's favor. But like if there is a kit that I am freaking in love with, then I
Mhm.
will add it to the spreadsheet before I even like purchase it. I'll be like, all right, we're ready for it. Let's go, girls. Like that's what I did with I just got and speaking of like here's this cool thing that I purchased. I just got the Stiplasteroid Ardito Form 30-minute sisters. She literally came in today. She is absolutely adorable. I've been like carrying her around all day once I got home, and like I was gonna build her a little bit before like we got on, then I would have like something to show. But like my workspace is a mess, so I've actually just taken to building in my other room, and it's embarrassing, but that's okay. And like that's one of those things that she was in my backlog for like as soon as I found her, I'm like, nope, I gotta have her. Look at her, she's so cute. She's like Blacktron 2. It's P Bandai, but like she's only gonna get printed this one time because no one gives a fuck. Like no one cares who this girl is. She's not from anything, but like I had to have her because I looked critically at, do I need this cute little robot girl? The answer was yes. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That answer varies differently for everybody.
yeah. I actually I took a similar approach where any anything that like I knew I was like it was like a no doubt. I like added it to my backlog
Hmm.
spreadsheet. So like the Sandland tank, which
Yeah.
I accidentally manifested into reality. Once that was announced, it was like immediate like pre-order. HobbyLink Japan. HobbyLink
Uh-huh.
Japan has been bugging me to ship my warehouse for like over a year because I've been waiting for that kit to get into it. But
My God.
it's one of those things where it's like it's probably. I mean, actually, I don't know if it's going to be like one of those like evergreen reprints because like certain series don't see reprints,
Yeah.
especially for like what was it recently. Um, I found a like reasonably priced Juggernaut from '86,
Oh, yeah.
the anime with the spider tanks and stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Oh yeah.
okay, sounds like a deal. But like similarly to Loops, took I took a point in time last year or year before that to make like just kind of like separate like a bucket of funds, so
Mhm.
that way I'm not just like blindly buying, because like that was an issue I ran into very early on in the hobby. Is just like, yep, that goes on the credit card, no doubt. So now
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
I have a separate bucket that like I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy that. Hold on, do I have money that I can transfer over to my bank account to make sure that it's there whenever it's ready? Yes. Okay, cool. Now we can buy it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I
But
have to
then you're
wait.
like, do I really want those?
Yes, yes. So like now that I have like I've given myself a hard limit, like I have an upper bound, and the longer I go without buying things, the upper bound increases. you know,
Mhm.
It's a nice
to a
incentive to like control yourself. You know, if
ab-
you're like, "Mm, I really want that PG Sinanju, it's going to take a long time, but oh boy.
y- absolutely. And I mean, it's something very simple that you can like set up with, I think most banks, like you're able to like separate or make a new account or say I made a savings account and I just have it auto debit like like once a month, like $5, you know. So it's not like I'm taking away from like my own rainy day fund or personal savings that like I need for whenever crap hits the fan. But it's like it's there to like allow me to still have some fun, but be more controlled about my decisions, right? Um,
Right.
would definitely recommend others if like you find yourself in a similar boat to myself where it's like you see thing you want to buy it but then the time comes for your credit card bill and you're like, oh crap, that
Oh
was
no.
way more than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing I definitely want to say to some of this, and that is do
Oh my
not
god.
finance
Oh,
Gunpla.
oh,
Uh, like I was in a certain retailer's Discord for a brief amount of time, and there was an individual in there that would purchase from said retailer, and they would use like the pay in four or the buy now pay later thing, and they were just buying
ugh.
excessive
Yeah, paying
amounts of
4 only
things,
really
just
helps you
like
out if you don't have like 7 of them
It's
coming out.
like,
Mhm.
right, and that's exactly what it was. Is like this person, they would be like, they'd order like seven or five to seven of something, and it wasn't like cheap somethings. It's not like 5 to 7 HGs. They were talking like
oh,
PG level stuff, so it's like $500 to $700 in one go, and they would do this in a pay in four, and it's like, okay, well, if it's a pain for once, maybe it's okay. I don't really like the idea of
Mhm.
financing a toy, uh, but nonetheless, some that's me. Other people have different mentalities, and that's fine. But like that is obscene. It's like I think it's just, and that's just like kind of the goes hand in hand with just not knowing how
Ah,
like credit works or
yes.
financing works in general, where it's like, oh, I get it now, it's free money, I can pay it back whenever. And it's like, no, you have a very specific and explicit timetable to pay that back by. And if you don't, it has really far reaching and
It
Mhm.
negative
is a very
ramifications.
dangerous game.
And
So,
it's taking advantage of
yeah.
those
And like
people who
that's
don't know these things, you know?
right, exactly. And like the thing is, like, I didn't learn jack
Yep.
about credit in high school. Like no, and most people don't until you get out and you actually like attempt to open up a credit card and see
Mhm.
the what happens to your credit, or even get go like to a financial literacy class or anything like that. You're not gonna know, and that's a huge problem. Is just people racking up debt on things they don't
Yeah.
really need, um, and it's really dangerous.
Yeah, I like there's a couple points there. One, no, obviously I'm not a financial professional, but like I know that credit cards are not for everyone. Financing is not for everyone, and like the best advice I ever got was like if you're putting like a charge onto a credit card or you're financing stuff, you should also have the money to back it up because
Yeah,
like
absolutely. And it
it's
is
gonna
wild that people
Uh-huh.
don't know this or don't feel this
it's
way.
it's gonna come out and it's probably gonna be end up being more than like you expected because like if it's financed, like they add like additional charges to it. If it's a credit card, if you don't pay off that minimum, or sorry, if you just pay the minimum, you get like the interest added to it. And it's just like a lot of people see that as the free money. Would recommend like if you're one of those people who are not a credit person, please like learn more about it, or don't use credit, um, because it is a slippery
Yeah,
slope.
just save that for emergencies, like
Yeah,
serious, "Oh, no," like, "Oh, crap, I got a disconnect notice for something," or God knows what. Don't put toys on your credit card.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is the one thing you brought up, Indy, was people who are buying like 4 and 5 of like big ticket items, right? So there's nothing wrong with collecting. I think collecting is like a healthy thing. I personally have
Yeah.
collections of many things, goblins from Magic the Gathering, or
Hmm.
specific like mobile suit uh, model kits because I like to have like a complete series. But it's like whenever you get to the point where you're like buying many big ticket items, and especially when you're putting it on credit, like what, like it's like, is that really for like, I'm almost wondering, like, are you doing it because you want to collect those things, or do you have a plan? Like, if you have a plan, more power to you. But like a lot of times, it feels like these people who are like, I'm trying to see, almost use this as like an investment, but then like the
Hmm.
investment doesn't come through because all it takes is for them to just reprint another batch, and that price on the third party market just tanks, right?
I mean, that's even saying it's an investment. You know, it may not be. They may just want that
More
many
thing
of
is
those
good,
things.
more good.
Yes, that's
Like,
a cat. Yeah, and but the other side is like, then like, what about
yeah,
the anxiety that comes with that? That impending
Mm.
credit card statement at the end of the month. You know, especially when you know you can't make that payment, like it, or like God forbid something happens. You know, like I don't know very many people that aren't living paycheck to paycheck, and you know, like what happens if you trip and like roll your ankle? What if you get hit by a car? You know, what if like you get diagnosed with something really awful, you know, and you're going to be out of work? You know, like
yeah,
these things are realities, and like not being prepared, you know, like it's very dangerous, like I had stated before. And it seems silly to me to finance um
yeah,
like Gundams. Just because like there's that ever present danger of you may not be able to pay this
yeah.
back.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. It's like we've definitely like, there's a slippery slope to, I'm getting the good feels from buying the thing, and then to almost be met with the anxiety, the opposite, like, and worse feels of like, oh no, the thing is here, and now I'm not the happy anymore. Like,
Clearly, the solution is to buy the next big shiny
And
thing.
and yeah, it's reciprocal. Like that's the thing, is like you'll sit there and you'll be like, okay, I'm chasing that high. Okay, cool. I can get that thing if I finance it, I can get it. That's great, and I can worry about the payments later. So now you got the
Later.
thing, and it didn't
Hmm.
fix things for you. You know, it didn't fix it for you. The excitement has now worn off because it's what, 6 months removed from when you made the purchase, and now you've got this credit card debt that you're racking up, and then you go and you buy the next big thing to try to, you know, get that feel back, and
yeah,
it's a cycle. And unfortunately, like, you know, it's not just Gunpla. Like Magic the Gathering is a huge one for that. You know, especially with the recent changes to the way their
mhm,
secret layer drops work. And even then, just standard, the competitive format standard is literally chasing the new thing because uh, um, expansions cycle out, you know, and they're only in blocks. So once your expansion cycles out, let's say you've got like half of your deck is built off of one expansion, or you know, a couple of these expansions, and then they cycle out. Now you have to completely reformulate your deck. You have to buy new singles or
uh,
booster packs, which, you know, booster packs are fun, but dear
yeah.
God, don't try to get
If
specific cards from booster packs. Buy new
I would
singles.
say,
But
if Gunpla or any like class, like, I mean, I obviously like miniature war games and stuff is what I'm kind of referring to here. But like, if there were, if there was a type 2 for some Gunpla format and it had booster packs involved, I would be broke.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, like the whole idea of like, you know, I mean, Magic is I mean, it is referred to as plastic crack, or not plastic crack,
Cardboard crack.
cardboard crack, Gunpla's plastic crack.
Hmm.
Um, or is it Warhammer? I don't remember anymore.
I
Um,
have Lego too. So.
I mean, either way,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
but yeah,
cocaine.
it's just like that idea of like, you, the cracking boosters, you know, you get that good feel, you know, you get the what might be perceived as an exclusive, you know, you get them good feels. I'm not saying, like I said, nothing wrong with collecting, but like when you're just buying to get the serotonin hit, it might, you know, definitely be time to like have some uh mental health talks. Not a
Hmm.
professional, but like been in that boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what really helped turn me off to purchasing boosters for Magic the Gathering, it was when I got back into it. It was a couple of cycles after Zendikar had cycled out. But like Jace the Mind Sculptor was still like $350. And I was like, oh man, I really want that card. And after chasing after that card, spending 10 to sometimes $20 on the secondary market for Zendikar boosters, which are
Yeah.
what, $5, 4 or
Oof.
$5 normally when it's in season. I was like, nah, I just can't. So never again. Like,
Yeah. It's I mean, just in general, like there's we experience like, that high from, and I say high like liberally, but like from, collecting the thing or getting the thing or like chasing that rare, if it's like a, what is it? I have like a Mandarake watch list set up for like waiting for that one thing that was printed like a decade ago to show up again.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
the narrative Sananju Stein.
Yeah, I got that finally. And then
Nice.
they printed
Yeah, now I get to get the Verka.
they printed the Burkhan. I was like, ah, son of a
Yeah, I need to do that with
I'll use
Devil
some blue
Data
stuff to make
too.
a cast of the wrist parts for you, buddy.
thanks. But like, I mean, I think that's a good example personally. Like I was like waiting for that thing and I saw what was at the time like the lowest price and I'm like, oh, I gotta, I can't like look at like I gotta take it, right?
I'm never
And
gonna
then
have another opportunity
I'm
though.
never gonna
Yeah.
have another opportunity. And where is it? It's currently in my backlog because I'm like, oh, I don't want to start on it yet. I got other stuff to start on. And then they did the whole Verka print, and I was like, so I could have waited, gotten to stay. But like you also, it's one of those. It's the problem of you don't know, and at the time, it seems like a great idea. You feel good about it. I mean, I don't regret it. I mean, I'm actually really happy to have the like one of the original run prints, but um, I don't know. Just
And like I think that there's something to be said about like finding the balance there and like obviously that was a fun experience for you as a whole. Like it's
yeah.
sort of the thrill of the hunt. Like I love sales, I love thrift shops because I love the hunt. Like maybe you'll find something really cool. Maybe you'll find this Zenanju's narrative Verka like on a really good deal for some reason. Like
Mhm.
I've found that with manga actually. I recently collected all of Atsushi Okubo's Soul Eater, like the not the first edition obviously because that's crazy, but like the first translation and like those Tonkobon. And like for some reason 13, 14 and 15 were just buku dumb, really hard to find for like 6 months. And I was sitting on almost the entire thing missing those 3 Tonkobon and like the only reason I finally finished it is because someone didn't know what they had. Like these things would go for like $50 a pop on eBay, and
Oh,
somebody randomly listed it for like $10 used. I was like, done. Let's go, girls. And that was part of the fun. And every time I read it, and I love like Soul Eater, I think it's super fun and silly and wacky. And now when I read it, I'm like, ah, this is the volume where I like had to fight for it, like that's kind of part of the fun, but like it shouldn't be the entire fun. I still want to read the series. I still want to build these kits after the fact. But like you have to it's a bunch of introspection.
I think that's actually a bit of a almost like a little bit different,
Oh
right?
yeah?
Because like
Oh
the
yeah,
the
you're right.
hunt, the hunt, right?
Yeah.
The hunt is different than like it's dropped. I gotta go get it right now, or I'll never get it again. Versus
Yeah.
like I've found like several like printings of like books or like similar case of like manga where it's like I wanted to read this but like obviously it's been like years since it was printed and so you do a hunt and like you try to find either a copy but like you want to make sure you're getting a good deal because like clearly if there's a third party market there's going to be people who are overpricing it and people who are underpricing it
Mhm.
and I feel like it does tie a bit into the vein of like the fear of missing out but it's kind of more into the collector realm, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like I gotta get it, but I'm also not gonna, do whatever I have to do to get it, unless it's something like stupid rare.
Mhm.
But like that thrill of the hunt is like actually a very accurate like description of like that feeling of like I had watched eBay for months, I had watched Mandarake for months, and like watched, Sewer Gaia and all those like different websites. And then like one of them came through and the price was not like bananas. And I went, okay, this is like I gotta, it's you gotta take your shot, hope it's real.
Mhm.
uh
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yep.
like as opposed to like, hey, P Bandai drop tomorrow.
That's
Gotta
so much more regulated, You're right. Like fear of missing out is specifically like a byproduct of the regulation of first party markets. The thrill of the hunt is more like third party.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
There's overlap.
tapping into this, slightly, like before the introduction of
Mm.
Hasbro Pulse, uh, there was getting Transformers. The figures was specific to going to retailers. Um, some were Toys R Us exclusives, some were Walmart exclusives, some were Target exclusives, and you'd have to go to these locations to get them because, like, Target was notoriously bad for trying to find any toys, especially when they opened up their website to third party sellers like
Ooh.
Walmart did, like Amazon and stuff like that. So finding stock at these locations is horrible. But yeah, no, like, so there's that was that thrill of the hunt aspect there as well. It would be, going and chasing after the toys at these retailers. And it would be pretty fun because it'd be like, oh wow, I didn't know this particular store had this particular thing. Yeah, like I used to live on the border of New York and Vermont, and you would go to like the the Walmart or the Target that was on the New York side and be like, okay, they haven't gotten anything, but you'd go over to the Vermont one and like they had just gotten wave 2 of whatever was coming out. So it'd be really neat to see that distribution. So you'd go and you'd hunt, and there was some fun in that. And one of my best friends in the world, he and I would do that. Like we'd like, okay, we're gonna get together, we're gonna go to Vermont, we're gonna go check out Toys R Us, we're gonna go check out Target, we're gonna go check out Walmart, and see if there's anything that caught our interest. And it was fun. It was really fun. I mean, sometimes we wouldn't even
Yeah,
buy
you
anything,
just go
Kind
and
of,
but it
shop.
was neat to look.
Shopping's free.
yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like going to, like GameStop for a midnight release of a game you're
Yo.
gonna play with you and your buddies until like 6 in the morning that day.
Uh, yes.
Where it's
God.
like you're not necessarily hunting it, but like you did have to like land a pre-order spot.
Yeah.
As as a former GameStop employee, I can
Yeah,
wholeheartedly say that I
Yeah, I'm
hated
sure that was
midnight
terrible for
releases.
working.
Just because, well, like, I mean, they weren't so bad to work, especially if it was a game I had zero interest in, like the Call of Duty
Mhm.
drops. I'm just like, okay, cool. It's just a bunch of people that are doing
Yeah.
their war cosplay. Fun, and they'll come and get their game and it'll go through and I'll go home
Mhm.
and I'll play something I enjoy. What really set me off, though, was my store manager was a dick because, like, he knew I enjoyed Pokemon and I was knowledgeable on Pokemon, still am. But so he'd be like, "Oh, I'm scheduling you so you can talk with these people." It's like, I don't want to talk with them. I
Yeah.
want to buy my game and go home because I want
Yeah,
to
that's
play
why
the
I'm here at
game.
GameStop.
And it was really frustrating, like super frustrating when that would happen.
um, I think one thing to kind of like take away from this is like there's the thrill of the hunt, and like as things have shifted from being like a store exclusive, you now have, you said like with Hasbro Pulse or P Bandai, you now have these direct to consumer lines, which have like almost an even more like the idea of the artificial scarcity is in their favor, right?
Mhm.
And
I think I think there's not necessarily an elephant in the room, but there is an element in the room that we're
uh,
kind of tiptoeing around, and I think not tiptoeing like because we don't want to address it, but tiptoeing because we just haven't looked at it yet. And I think that's instant
yes,
gratification culture.
Oh. Mm.
You know, because we're talking about the thrill of the hunt, and sometimes you don't even buy it. Like the gratification you get is the effort that you put in to finally find that kit, finally
Mhm.
Mhm.
find that thing. where now it's just like, oh, it's there, I want
I
it,
think
click,
that
I got it.
that kind of ties to the earlier point where did I enjoy more from I bought the thing, or am I going to enjoy it more when I get it? And like
Oh yeah.
whenever it ties more into like I enjoyed clicking buy, like that's definitely more of the instant gratification.
Yeah, and I think that's all like a huge aspect of it, honestly, especially because like a lot of these retailers are enabling that instant gratification, with these drops like Supreme, P Bondi, Secret Lair through MTG, uh, uh, Hasbro Pulse, all these things. It's like, oh yeah, it's coming out this date, get ready, and you get ready and you psych yourself up, and of course you're on their Twitter or whatever social media platform you follow them on, and you're seeing all these updates and all these pre-release pictures, and you're getting yourself all worked up and excited. The day comes, you click the button, you buy it, and then
I
it's
miss
just gone.
I miss
There's
like
no payoff.
like the surprise drops, right? Like I think like
Yeah.
there's almost like a little bit more. It's less instant it's like less of that like what is it? It's like when you tell someone about a project you're working on and you get like all the accolades before you even start it. That's kind of like
Mhm.
how some of these pre-order like preparation things feel, where it's like, oh, here it comes, it's coming. You're like, oh boy, I'm so excited, can't wait to buy it, and then it's over. And then like versus like
Right.
surprise, it's here, you had to be there to get it, and it's like the whole having to go to the
Mm,
right store at the right time to find it.
Mhm.
and I think and I think the worst part about it is like there's no payoff. Like, there's like none whatsoever. You click it, you get it, the hype
Uh,
dies like right there, and it makes you feel a little less, like a little emptier, to me anyway. That's how it always felt. Like, yeah, I'd look forward to the item coming out, and then but I'd forget about it until I got the P Bondi notification email that's like, oh, it's shipping this month, and it's like, oh, holy crap, I forgot I purchased that thing. Yeah, now I'm all excited again, and I'm checking the tracking every day, and it gets here, and I open the box, I take a picture, send it to whatever Discord servers I'm in for backlogs, and mail call or whatever, and then it goes on a shelf and gathers dust until I finally have the time to work on it. And I think that's a lot of like just kind of realizing like that was the repetitive behavior I was engaging in, kind of helped me step back from it and kind of get away from that instant
mhm.
gratification mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like part of that is also like I love when when you forget about these things, and like I like all of my P Bandis I have looked critically. I'm like, do I need this? The answer is usually yes, and then I'm like super excited about it, and then I will inevitably forget about it because I have the memory of a goldfish and a bunch of stuff going on. And then like I'll get that email and you're like, oh my gosh, that's fantastic, and it's like a gift from past you to future you, and it's just really fun to be part of that beautiful cycle. But like you also have to like look at it, you know is this going to be something that future me will still want? I guess.
No, I mean it's hitting the nail on the head. And I
Hmm.
think that's kind of like how a lot of the backlog ends up feeling, right? Is future me going to still want this?
Hmm.
It's that serotonin. We're just chasing that serotonin hit that we get, and like as somebody with ADHD, like who has like an issue with serotonin reuptake, it's you'll just kind of get into this cycle of just buying and buying and buying and buying and buying, and following the tracking and checking the tracking every day, and then it shows up, and then you get into that cycle, but it's never fulfilling. You know what I mean? You're just it's kind of it's like there's a reason why we call it plastic crack, and it's exactly this, not exactly the same. Obviously there's not going to be any debilitating health effects if I stop cold turkey, but it's a similar concept, where you're chasing that next thing, but the chase never ends.
Hmm.
I don't want to go
Speaking
through a
of,
plastic withdrawal.
oh, okay. Speaking of like chase though, like one of the things that actually helped me curve FOMO a lot was that I just happen to live in a place where there's a bunch of really fantastic gunpla and like model kit like physical community and lots of stores to purchase like good selection at, and sometimes they have weird stuff. And like what I love most is the thrill of the chase to, you know, sort of get away from FOMO, but also like kind of it's not FOMO because it's like it's a swerve on it. And like I'll get that instant gratification of finding something like, oh, I was looking for this, but I didn't want to purchase it online because I already have this huge backlog. And like I just found the 30 minutes missions Acerby just randomly at my comic shop, and I overpaid for the kit, but I wanted it right then, and then I bought it, and then basically I built it the next, not the next week, but like the next month, and like had a great time. And I'm like, you know what? More of this. I need to get my backlog down so I can do this more often. This is fun.
I think that's a really good juxtaposition because
Mhm.
if a lot of the backlog usually gets built from things you bought, you don't get it immediately and then it gets shipped to you. I've actually been in the same boat where like I bought a kit and I built it. I was literally sitting in the back of my car because I was waiting for someone and it was a hobby shop and I was like, oh cool.
Oh,
Oh hey,
fun.
there's a hobby shop. So I got a kit that looked really cool,
Mhm.
and I happened to have a toolbox in the back of my car, and I just was sitting in the back of my car at a parking lot, just snapping it up, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. I got to get it and build it, and I enjoyed it immediately. The joy was not just getting it; the joy was the entire way through. Uh, and I mean, I think like what you described or what we've described is like it's not always something everyone can get to experience, but it's definitely like I think a little bit healthier way to approach it, where it's like you're able to like retain that hit of serotonin. Like I got it, and I get to like enjoy it, and then look at my product of my work as opposed to I bought it 6 to 12 months later, it shows up on my doorstep and I go, "Oh crap, I forgot about that thing."
Oh no. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I also have the P Bandai notification email just came in of things I forgot I bought.
Oh, oh no.
I have the opposite. I don't have access to a hobby shop, readily. Like there was a comic book shop that I used to frequent in my old town, and they would have the occasional kit, but it was massively overpriced, and they'd only have
Ugh.
like four at a time
And
because
two of
it was
them were
just
the
like a
new,
little
and the
local
other one was a
comic shop.
Sotheby.
Like they did. Yeah, no, like it was like really
Ooh.
odd stuff. Like I think I got an RG build strike
What?
from them at one point, but it was like, yeah, it was like well after like the build strike should have been off. Like it was just really strange. It was when Diamond Comics was starting to distribute some
Ooh.
Gunpla, so like yeah. So and the thing is like I don't know if you've ever dealt with Diamond Comics as a distributor, but like they are not great for
Mm.
smaller shops. You'll put an order in and then it'll be like, yeah, you're on the list, but if like, well, like for example, I lived in northern New York, and the problem with living in northern New York is that you know you have the city down below, which obviously there's a much higher population density. The city has more needs, there's more money in the city, and that's fine. So you'd have distributors that would go and sell to like these big comic shops down in the city,
Yeah.
like Midtown Comics, you know and they would get everything that they order, but let's say the distributor only got like X amount, they'd have to cut somebody out. So it was usually the smaller mom and pop retail situations. So, that'd be the same thing, like in the city, like I went to Midtown Comics when I was down in the city. It was really cool. They had actually some really cool gunpla there, you know, but like it's very obvious like that's where
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
went, not to the little mom and pop like comic shop that I went to. um, and then like here on the Vermont side of things, like there's a place, that's nearby, and they have like some of the newer stuff, but not anything like really cool. And that's like the thing that I'm finding is if it's not specifically like how am I trying to word this? if it's not somebody that's really in touch or in tune with Gunpla fandom and the Gunpla marketplace, I feel like their stock is always
Mhm.
really wild. Like it's just this wacky, like hodgepodge of kits that some are like something I would never buy, or it's like, okay, cool, I bought this thing already, but they have 20
Oops.
more of them and
Yeah.
nothing else.
Like
Yeah. So that's been my experience. You know, the selection is odd. Like I don't have a hobby town
uh-huh.
near me, you know, and I know that hobby town is like that's also dependent on the
Right.
specific hobby town. You know, like yeah,
I've got two or three of them near me,
Wow.
and the one has build days twice a month, and they have an absolutely fantastic stock of Gunpla, and that's a really huge part of that store's je ne sais quoi.
Hmm.
But but then the other ones that are a couple towns over, it's more RC cars and stuff like that. But like you were saying, Magic, because there's such a healthy local community here, in addition to those hobby towns, there's like three or four mom and pop stores, there's train stores, there is a very large selection of places to get Gunpla, so there's a lot of local culture. And so I don't wind up on my phone scrolling around looking at Gunpla stores, seeing what restocks were and stuff like that. Like it just doesn't matter because
Mhm.
like you, it's like, well, I know if I want something, I guarantee you one of these stores will have it. And if they don't, they can probably get it for me. And then you get that, I think it's like an extra little good serotonin hit that you're helping out your little mom and pop or even just like
Yeah.
your local hobby store where you're like, oh right, like I don't have any problem with any of the online retailers. But at the same time, like you if you want to be able to find Gunpla around you, you've got to support those local stores.
yeah. Yeah, and like that's the thing is like I would buy from them
Oh,
when I
sure.
you know when I if they had something I was interested in, but like it's just a matter of like did they have it or not. Yeah, and it's tricky. And then the other part of it is like these like what am I trying to say? You know, obviously they have bills to pay. You know, they got to pay their rent. So sometimes the prices just aren't. They can't compete.
True.
You know, with some of these online retailers. So it's like it's really tough. Where it's like, yeah, you can factor in the shipping, but like if the base price of the kit plus the shipping from the retailer is still less than the thing that's right here in front of me, I'll just order online. You know, that's it's always been that way for me. And like, yes, I want to support them,
You have your
but
own bills
also
to pay,
like
you know?
bills. Yeah, I got my own bills to pay, and like
Yeah.
every dollar counts. It's tough, and like I always support local as much
But
as you can,
it's as much as you
hundred
can,
percent,
you know?
because it's
As much
important.
as you can,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah,
kind of an
as much as you
important
can. Yeah,
distinction.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, a lot of people want to vilify like a lot of online retailers and big box stores, and that's all well and good. But like, this is how some people afford their
Yeah, and
groceries at
like
the end of the
it
day.
makes everything
You
so much
know?
more accessible to someone in like nowhere Idaho can now like have access to these random like Japanese exclusive kits, and I think that's really neat. But like it's because of the big box stores, and not everyone has these opportunities that Loops and Springer and I have to like just wander into like a hobby town and they're having a build night, and they have that one random Sandland kit that I was looking for or whatever, you know.
Yeah. There was a wild period of time back around like 1997 when Toys R
Yes,
Us
I
carried
was
Gunpla.
alive during that, surprisingly.
I That was my
Yeah.
first Gunpla came from a Kmart. Uh,
Kmart, oh,
uh, back
throwback.
back
Yeah.
during the
Yeah,
period
same
where
here.
they pulled all of the Gundam Wing Death Scythe Hell. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh,
So I,
goodness.
Yeah. My first Gunpla was the 1/144th no grade
Yep.
heavy arms, and I
Yep.
bought it at a Toys R Us, and it was so fun. And like my brother and I bought dozens more, and I played with them. And of course, like because they're model kits, they would come apart easy. So I'd like simulate like scenes
Uh-huh.
from the anime where it's like, oh no, the heavy arm's got
Ugh.
its arm cut off and stuff like that. But it was fun. Now like as an adult, when I build these things, it's like I
Yeah,
wouldn't even
don't touch
dream
them.
of playing with them. You know? because like obviously now I'm putting like a lot more effort into the
Mhm.
build than I did back then. And the builds yeah, and the builds are also like much
Yeah, they are
more
so
involved.
involved.
They don't come apart
Yeah.
like they used to. We're talking like pegs going into polycaps, and like C clips. Like sometimes and you don't really want to mess with those too much, obviously, because they excessive wear and tear. But now, like, yeah, that just you can't do that. Like it's not the same way. Like you can't just like take it off at the elbow and it'll be fine. Like the elbow is an
Yeah.
intricate joint. I don't know. That's another topic for another day, talking about, like the playability of these things, in the past compared to now, you know.
Thank you guys for joining. So basically, I mean, the gist of it is serotonin, very important. Backlogs, kind of par for the course. And
Yeah.
I think part of it comes down to like monitoring your, the growth of your backlog versus your own happiness, or like uh just spending, or just like being a little bit more mindful about it.
Yeah,
But like
mindfulness is a good way to like think about it. It's something we should practice and
Ask yourself some questions before you hit buy.
yeah,
yeah,
like look inward just a little bit.
yeah, and this is something I think that we can definitely like expand upon in the future. Obviously this is not like the definitive discussion, and
No,
probably,
yeah.
yeah,
My closing statement is don't
that
finance toys.
that is a good ending statement.
Good statements. Smart.
Hey, thank you for listening to Hanger V Hobby Hangout. We hope you come back for the next one. You can find us this and more episodes where all fine podcasts are found. Read more of what we write on hangerv.com, and we hope to see you in the next one.